All right, good morning all and welcome to Empower. If this is the first session you're joining today, we're going to be talking about recognition and why it's a critical tool for building connection in today's remote world. I'm going to post something over to the chat to welcome all of you. First of all, we love getting to know you. We would love to hear where you're dialing in from. Please let us know what you're hoping to learn today. And if you have a moment to think about recognition, we have our free Lift Up tool, which will be your opportunity to really recognize and celebrate someone going above and beyond. If you visit blueboard.com/liftup, you can send a free recognition note to really brighten someone's day. I'm Morgan Cheney. I run our marketing team here at Blueboard, and I'll be moderating today's event. We're going to let everyone get settled, continue to let us know where you're dialing in from, what you're hoping to learn from today, and we'll be getting started in just a minute or two. I'm seeing a few people from all over. Charmaine is coming in from the Philippines. Thank you so much for joining today. Sonia is joining from Houston. Welcome, welcome. More Texans, love it. Wow, Anja's dialing in all the way from Croatia. So happy to have you. Personally, I'm dialing in from San Francisco, and it is quite a funny day today. It feels a little bit apocalyptic. Our skies are pretty dark, so I actually have all the lights on in my house. Continuing to adapt in our smoky world during COVID. But if anyone else is in the Bay, I'm sure you're feeling similarly eerie and maybe like your body's telling you that it's time to go to bed. All right, we've got more people from Nashville. Welcome, Katie. Christiana, all the way from West Africa. Thanks so much for being here. David says, I'm dialing in from the Bay Area, AKA Mars. I agree. Our skies are orange and red. It's a very strange day, but we are happy to have everyone together online. All right, so it is 11:31 here in San Francisco, which means we can go ahead and get started. We'll pass through on the slides. Again, anyone who is wanting to share where you're dialing in from, what you'd hope to learn from today, we love hearing from you. Continue to feel free to share as you get on touch with the chat. All right, so today's session again is recognition and why it's your most critical tool for building connection in today's remote world. We'll start off with some introductions. We have two amazing speakers here with us today. Let's go ahead and start with Nancy. Nancy would love to hear a little bit about you, what your role is, what your company looks like, and ultimately why this topic was exciting for you today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy Woodfill, and I'm the lead event planner here at JM&A Group. At JM&A, we are a business division of JM Family Enterprises. We're one of the largest independent providers of F&I products in the automotive industry. JM Family is currently ranked number 26 on the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For, and has been consecutively for the last 22 years. I'm very excited to talk about today's topic because at JM&A Group, we feel that it is critical to see our clients as partners. And one of the ways that we instill this value is by recognition, as we feel it's really important to celebrate their performance. And I hope that as we talk through the recognition programs that we're here to share with you today, that and how we adjusted during this time, that you find at least one takeaway that will inspire you and your team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy. And I'll welcome Jess next.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jess Wagner, and I am on the employee engagement team at the Trade Desk. TTD is an advertising technology company headquartered in Ventura, California, with 25 offices around the globe and just over 1,600 employees. I'm really excited to talk about recognition and connection today because at TTD, it's really a key differentiator of our culture, and we invest a lot in meaningful recognition. It's something that is so important to our leadership and was really intentional from the get-go when TTD was founded. And we partner with Blueboard to provide some really neat experience rewards for our employees around the year, which really helps us with our recognition strategy, and really excited to connect today with both Morgan and Nancy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jess. And again, I'm Morgan Cheney. For those of you I haven't met yet virtually, as we've been doing more events this year, I run our marketing team at Blueboard, based in San Francisco, and ultimately we have a few offices around the world, but we are all currently remote right now. We have about 80 employees, and we are really focused around the recognition space, which is why this topic is so near and dear to our hearts. We effectively offer a menu of experiential employee rewards that your team gets to choose from, whether that's doing something out in the world like a kayaking trip in the Bay, or learning how to play the guitar, or for tomorrow, chasing the Northern Lights or doing a family surf camp in Portugal. So lots of fun things for employees to choose from. And whether that's celebrating above and beyond performance, which we'll talk a lot about today, fostering sales incentives and motivating teams, or celebrating anniversaries, we're excited to partner with companies for any type of reward, milestone, or celebration. So as we jump forward, let's talk about our agenda really quickly. We've gone through our welcome and intros. Next up, we'll be talking a little bit about how employee needs, specifically related to recognition, have shifted while most of us have now gone to a remote setting. And then from there, why recognition is truly a critical piece of your engagement model, what data we've seen, and then some of the stories that Nancy and Jess will speak to. And then ultimately, the really exciting part is that both Jess and Nancy will be sharing a few program ideas, fresh ideas, and case studies that you can hopefully emulate even at your own company, of ways that they've adapted their own recognition strategies since going fully remote. We will have time to answer questions throughout. You'll see that we're having the chat very active right now. This is a great place to drop questions. You can also leverage the Q&A module across the Zoom bar that you'll see on your screen. We'll be hoping to pepper in questions throughout the content so that we can make sure that we're keeping the conversation lively and answering all your questions. And then of course, at the end, as we have free time, we'll be taking additional questions then. So feel free to use either of those tools. And we might also ask for even some of your own inspirations or best practices along the way. If you'd like to share ideas with the group, as you'll see here on screen, we recommend toggling your chat to reach all panelists and attendees. That way you're able to really share your message with the community. We have over 300 people now live on the line with us, so it's a really great opportunity to not just hear ideas from the three of us, but really from all of you who are very much thought leaders in your field. And with that, we'll jump forward. So let's start with a little bit of why we're here. Why is recognition such a critical piece of our engagement strategy, and what has changed since COVID-19 hit back in March? Ultimately, remote work is challenging the way we're staying connected and engaged. That means that we're no longer, of course, in the same office space, and we might even be in an office space, but in a very much more restricted or socially distanced setting, especially for those who might be essential workers or even working in the healthcare industry. Additionally, when we think about our employees, their lives are also very different than when we were all together in March. They're juggling many responsibilities. In most cases, our work has actually become, more challenging. There's more momentum potentially behind your businesses as you're growing and pivoting your strategies, or maybe even facing headwinds related to your industry. And they're also juggling a lot of personal responsibilities. We've talked about on many past webinar sessions that you're working with home, meaning we are now adapting a lot of our responsibilities into our home environment, adjusting our workspaces, maybe transforming the way our homes are laid out. On our dry run, even just yesterday, we got to see Nancy's daughter in the background as she's now taken over her office space to make it half office, half school for her daughter. So there's a lot of that happening in our lives right now. And ultimately it means that employees are working very hard, but that core goal of wanting to be seen and valued for their accomplishments has not changed. And in fact, it's probably even more important now more than ever before, because we want to have that connection back to our company and to make sure that our work is truly making an impact. And because we're not together, the last piece here is that recognition has become a lot more intentional. You aren't having those opportunities to bump into someone in a break room or to have those few minutes after a really important client call ends to celebrate or debrief or share feedback. It means that you might need to add a new meeting to calendar, or extend a one-on-one, or have some more formality to your recognition moments, or that you might be trying to make something digital feel just as good as it did before in person. So it means that we're all having to make more time to really think through recognition. And of course, the topic for today, thinking how to really translate and adapt recognition into our new remote world. It's a whole different world, and we're getting better every day, but there's a lot to consider and think through to make it a success. So ultimately, why prioritize recognition? How is it an important piece of the engagement strategy that you're working through? There's three things that we'll talk through on screen here that really show the power of recognition and ultimately why it's a low-hanging fruit to fuel your engagement strategy. The first piece is really about engagement. A study by Deloitte shared that companies who have meaningful recognition programs in place will often see a 14-point increase on their annual engagement survey scores. For most of us, and as a lot of us are familiar, really just 1 in 3 employees are engaged across the country. And I'm sure that has changed dramatically with the onset of the pandemic. So if you can see a change in even 14 points or even 10 points on those scores, moving from maybe the 30s to the 40s, 50s, or 60s, that's huge for your entire company's engagement rate and can be a really successful pillar that you hang your hat on as an HR leader. The next piece is around retention. More studies by Deloitte pointed to those companies that have the meaningful kind of rates reduced by over 30%, meaning 1 in 3 employees are more likely to stay if they feel appropriately seen and valued. This is huge. As we know, it can cost a lot to replace an employee, even in today's job market. In most cases, it can cost up to 10 months of their salary to replace them when you think about the hard costs related to recruiting, as well as the time spent missed for productivity or their work output as that new hire is coming onto the scene and ramping up. And then the last piece is productivity. A new study by SHRM shares that companies that have employee recognition programs in place that are effective, paired with good career development guidance, which we know is a huge topic for over the last few days of Empower, they're seeing productivity rise by 63%, meaning that when you can see and value hard work and empower your managers to have thoughtful conversations about their career performance, their growth, and are giving them more projects that challenge them and make them truly fulfilled, productivity will rise overall. And as we know right now, there's a lot of need around motivation, around productivity, and burnout is continuing to be a challenge that most companies face. So when you think about recognition and its value, know that it can help engage your team, it can help them stay with you longer, and ultimately productivity will only continue to rise. Such an important need right now, especially as we're facing the pandemic. So I'm going to pause there and actually hand it over to Jess and Nancy. I want to hear from them. Ultimately, we love to start by just talking through what does your workplace look like today? How has it changed from COVID? And then ultimately, how has the role of recognition shifted? Why is it maybe more important now than ever before when you're thinking about the new landscape of what your company looks like? Jess, I'll have us start with you.
Awesome. So out of our 25 offices, nearly all of them are in a red status, which means it is closed. Some of the offices in APAC will go in, but then only to come back home just because those conditions change a lot. So we're essentially pretty remote as an organization. And so as an engagement team, our mission has been to help our employees stay positive, productive, and connected. And recognition is a way to really check each of those different boxes. It is a key driver of employee engagement and also a tool to help us meaningfully connect when we're physically apart. Really dialing into that idea of employees want to be seen. When we're working remotely, it's so easy to be siloed and feel underappreciated when your team can't physically see you putting in the work and overcoming new obstacles like less than optimal working conditions, juggling kids, roommates, and the trauma and chaos of 2020. And so our goal is to become really intentional about how we're fostering a culture of recognition and really encouraging managers to see the value in just recognizing teammates formally, informally, privately, publicly, and just creating new opportunities in this new virtual setting for people to really recognize each other despite the challenges we're facing.
Yeah, I like that you commented on, the company has a vision for recognition, but you also have to have that intentionality with managers. I know we'll talk through, some of those opportunities and training, especially, which Nancy will speak to, but that's a great call out, Jess. Thank you. And Nancy, what about you? How has your workforce changed? And then we'll talk more, I know, in your section, but at a high level, why is recognition still so important for your group?
So JM&A is headquartered in South Florida. We have a field team across the country. Approximately 70% of our workforce is working remotely in South Florida, but 100% of our field team has been given the okay to hit the road, and they've been back on the road since about mid-July. And starting next week, they will have approval to begin flying again. So that's pretty exciting. We're glad to be out there and visiting our dealer partners. At this time, we don't have a plan to go back to the workforce full time for the whole team. As Morgan mentioned, many of us are struggling being a parent and being a teacher and having our students in our offices with us, and what virtual learning looks like. And our company is very flexible with us balancing that. What we've learned is that we can still be productive. We are very productive working remotely, and we're still actually hitting our pre-COVID projections in regards to sales. So that's very exciting. We actually had our best June ever. In regards to recognition, we've traditionally recognized our dealer partners for their hard work and their dedication by offering very large incentive programs and trips.
Great. So ultimately, we're going to jump into a few ideas for adapting your recognition efforts. This is going to be two fantastic case studies that we're going to be walking through as a group. Jess will be speaking to ultimately how they've rethought through spot recognition, which is the opportunity to really motivate above and beyond performance. But in today's world, that might look a little bit different. How are those recognition and behaviors changing? And then from there, we'll have Nancy be walking through some new ideas for translating and adapting in-person events that used to be live together, big groups of people gathering, into now still equally celebratory virtual gatherings and initiatives. So a few themes that I wanted to call out and kind of ground us around as we're jumping into these case studies. The first thing we're going to talk a lot about is the need for recognition to still be incredibly memorable. Memorable recognition means that those moments help drive long-term behaviors because they're sticky and they stay with you. And then the rewards themselves as well need to be something that doesn't feel transactional, something that will evoke a more positive sentiment and relationship with the employer, and ultimately create stories that are ripe for sharing. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well as we go forward. The next piece and the big learning here is really around socialization and how you roll out and communicate your programs. Both of these ladies will talk about the need to have a different perspective around training, because what might used to be an in-person opportunity or small groups is now done virtually, where there might be some meeting fatigue or burnout and missed communication in some cases. So over communication, really straightforward training opportunities, lots of promotional materials, and also the notion just to have more buy-in up front from executive leaders. So the ability for those programs that you're championing as an HR leader to have more support from the top down to make sure that they're set up for success. And then lastly, the notion about recognizing new behaviors. As we talked about at the beginning, a lot of your employees are under siege in many ways. They have a lot on their plate that they're balancing and navigating, and they're also maybe having less opportunities to really deliver against their core role. They might have headwinds facing the business. They might have different expectations as businesses are changing. So what that means as an HR leader is a really great opportunity to think about recognizing the behaviors that are most relevant right now and that provide a little bit more opportunity for everyone to be recognized. So instead of more quantitative metrics that might now look like more qualitative metrics around intangibles, around behaviors that help drive a more positive company culture or that help support your mission and values. And Jess especially will expand on that as we go forward. So those are our three themes today. I'm going to pass it over to Jess to start chatting through how they've ultimately shifted how they connect and celebrate while working remotely. To get us started, Jess, would love to hear a little bit more about how your workplace has changed, and ultimately, how has recognition continued to be such a big part of your culture, starting with your own CEO, Jeff's perspective. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Morgan. Things are very different for our organization right now, as I'm sure the case for all companies. If you look to the images on the slide, the one on the bottom is from one of our mid-year Palooza sessions. We have these really incredible events that take place twice a year where we fly in the entire company or all of our new hires from the past 6 months to one location to really connect, realign, get inspired, and really help preserve our special culture. In February, we were actually supposed to all fly to Singapore, which was going to be an incredible people experience event. But of course, like most things, that got canceled. And so we were really faced with this challenge of how do we create a virtual culture that really does justice to everything that we value as an organization and really makes our employees feel special and recognized. And so just kind of circling back to that idea of recognition, it has always been a core part of our culture at the Trade Desk. Our CEO, Jeff Green, believes that as human beings, our most valuable commodity is our time on this earth. And so when employees choose to spend years of their life at the Trade Desk, that needs to be recognized and celebrated. So we invest a lot in recognition because we just see their time as the ultimate compliment, and it's the least we could do. In fact, our anniversary program is one of our cornerstone people programs at TTD, and it was so intentionally crafted to deliver recognition kind of in a multitude of ways. We have company level recognition with monthly newsletters that really celebrate everyone and the time that they've put in. Manager recognition, which we know is a huge driver of employee engagement. And managers, if you're listening, just think about that extra little thank you note or Slack. You know, this is the time to really go the extra 10% with little things like that. And then finally, thanks to Blueboard, really meaningful ways to commemorate milestones and celebrate the time that they've invested. Our own CEO celebrated his 10-year anniversary last year with his daughter at Disneyland. And, you know, at all levels of the organization, you want something to kind of commemorate all of the time and energy that you've invested. So it's just so important. And as we looked to really preserve and continue to nurture our culture in this new virtual environment, we really looked to see how we could build on recognition as a tool and a driver of our culture. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Morgan, we can go to the next slide. So when we approached this new virtual challenge, we kept some things in mind. First was our company values, and we had formally rolled these out in 2019. You'll see all 6 of them here, and the timing really couldn't have been any better because we had them to fall back on when times got tough this year. For individuals and for organizations in times of crisis and chaos, having a North Star, like a values system or a core credo that really helps people stay focused, aligned, and determined to overcome obstacles together is really important. It's such a game changer when you're in these turbulent conditions. So recognizing how our employees were living these values despite the new added challenges was something that we were really intentional about calling out. And this was really the birth of our spot recognition program with Blueboard, because we wanted employees to know that we saw them going the extra mile, the extra 10%, and really being generous and open with each other in light of everything that they're facing personally. And so having a value system was really an easy way to make recognition easy for people to really get. And then the second part of recognition is just the core concept of acknowledging where our employees are and the things that they're going through. We had a really remarkable conversation as an HR department about what it means to be a human resources team and how we can really provide truly human resources to employees and our work family in times of crisis and hardship. And so we really wanted to recognize what our employees were going through, and create some programs and initiatives that met them where they were. In April, we had hosted a virtual Take Your Kid to Work Day, which was pretty easy to do since the children were right alongside their parents, and we had a magician come in and really just engage the employees and their children. And there were so many smiles on the call, so many screenshots of people just having a really remarkable and joyful time in such a hard context and backdrop. And the other thing that we were really excited about was acknowledging Juneteenth as a holiday in the US, and really encouraging employees to take the day off to reflect, self-educate. We provided a number of different resources to help people truly understand the Black Lives Matter movement and how it was affecting all of our community, the role that we were playing, and also just take time for self-care. Like we keep touching on, this hasn't been an easy year, and we really want to meet employees where they are and support them, especially promoting mental health resources within our organization. We know that's more important now than ever. This is actually Suicide Prevention Week, which is something that we care deeply about, and making sure employees know that there are resources available to them, and that there shouldn't be a stigma around seeking mental health during this time, especially this year, is something we really wanted to make known. So those are kind of the two things we prioritized: our values from an employee standpoint, and as a HR department, how do we provide human resources that recognize and honor the current state of our workforce. And then how we adapted. So a lot of our regular programming went to virtual. I think our International Women's Day was the last in-office event, where we typically have these localized panels and celebrations in different offices and regions. But for Pride, which is one of our favorite celebrations, it went completely virtual this year. And it actually was a really neat opportunity for us to recognize everyone on a global scale. And this is an image from our Bringing Your Whole Self to Work panel. And you'll see employees from APAC, EMEA, and North America, which was really our first global panel of this sort. That was really exciting. Just being able to celebrate, connect, and recognize how our employees are being open, generous, and full-hearted with themselves at work. Another addition to our virtual environment was the rollout of a number of virtual employee-hosted activities. So a lot of people were sharing their special hidden skill sets, like if they are yoga instructors, meditation instructors, master chefs. Here we actually have, this is me getting my hair cut from one of my good friends who formerly was a hairdresser in a former life, and she showed everyone how to do a maintenance haircut to just kind of get you by if you couldn't get to a salon. But this was something that kind of happened organically, and it was something that we really wanted to recognize our employees for, because they really were just so generous and open with each other, and it really just went a long way when it came to employee engagement and connection. And so in addition to the activities, we also were really intentional about creating new and virtual channels for us to connect and recognize each other as a community. We have a work from home Slack channel that is our largest Slack channel to date. And that is a really special way for us to really connect with each other in a way that's not necessarily connected to regular business, and just to be human together. So creating these opportunities and pathways for communication and recognition is something that has really worked well for us.
I had a quick question on this really quickly. I know a lot of us are translating team gatherings, team happy hours, for example, to virtual, and we've been fortunate to have so many employees like step forward to really take on the challenge of maybe providing that programming. How have these virtual gatherings kind of helped empower new people to stand up or maybe have more exposure? Have there been any benefits, Jess, that you've seen already from engaging different types of faces or voices than people might be used to than, for example, at an all hands meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at our all hands meetings, you hear from a lot of our senior leaders around the globe, And as we grow so large, there are so many talented individuals who just don't get the same sort of airtime, and who you wouldn't know have these special skill sets, and who are remarkable stand-up comedians and just really talented Zumba instructors. And so this has been such a neat way for us to really showcase the talent throughout the organization, and really recognize that we value people stepping up and sharing themselves and their talents. You know, it's been such a really remarkable way to stay connected despite the hardships. I would say I probably have the most joyful job during the pandemic, because I get to spend my days organizing all of these fun virtual events. It's easy to kind of stay distracted from some of the harder things that we're all dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting a lot of fun ideas actually peppering through the chat, just for inspiration for those considering new ways to do virtual gathering. One of the ones I'm interested in, Rania is talking about a home scavenger hunt. If you have the details on that, please share. Lots of trivia nights, scribble.io, Abby is recommending as a fun activity where you get to do your own word list. As well as other things just related to themed meetings, red, white, and blue for 4th of July, Valerie's mentioning, crazy hat days, all that stuff. So it's good to mix it up and keep everyone engaged in new and creative ways for sure. So, and what I loved about this piece specifically is just the notion of tying back and the themes we addressed at the beginning, just to recognizing new behaviors. So Jess, just like you were mentioning, it's maybe no longer about hitting a sales goal or about delivering a specific quantitative metric. It's really more about embracing and celebrating the people who are stepping up into new leadership positions, maybe by offering a virtual yoga class, or being brave and open and vulnerable to participate in a pride channel or a pride discussion where you might have hundreds of people tuning in. You know, that can be a really challenging moment around public speaking, or just around, you've mentioned, bringing your whole self to work. And then really, how do those help to live your company values, your mission, and really embracing all of the ways that people are helping to keep your culture alive and strong, even though we might not be physically together in the same workplace. So powerful, and I loved all these examples. Great, so just moving forward, we'll wrap up with, sorry about that. There you go, last slide for Jess. What did you learn, and what might you do differently or even carry forward as you're thinking about continuing to grow and change your recognition strategy for our new normal, as we like to say now?
Yeah, so using our values as kind of a criteria for recognition is something that we're definitely going to kind of take with us. It's been so easy for people to recognize generosity and openness and full-heartedness in others, and it just really kind of feeds itself and helps drive our culture in the direction we want it to go. So really leaning into things like values in addition to time and effort and contributions as justification for recognition is something really special that we might not have discovered as quickly without the current predicament. And this has also been a really great opportunity for us to kind of tinker with different avenues of recognition. And so previously we would send these value postcards to our colleagues around the world. Here you can see the little postcard stand, and we would use this as a way to really kind of celebrate values being lived in our organization. But we're not in the office and we're not sending as much through the mail these days. And so we looked for ways to kind of still achieve that culture of recognition through introducing these employee spotlights to our monthly newsletters, which were really well received. You know, I think there's something to be said for public recognition, because people get really excited when they see their peers, their name in lights, and they can really kind of celebrate all of the work that they put in over the past couple of years. And so this was something that kind of fed itself, and it's something that we really like from the standpoint of how contagious culture can be. I will add, though, as an HR professional, I think it's important to recognize that not all departments will participate at the same level. And so it's important to really be intentional about striking a balance. And so if you don't hear as much from certain teams that maybe aren't in the limelight as much, it doesn't hurt to nudge managers and just be like, hey, no, you had a really big implementation a couple months ago, and you were really proud of how smooth that went. If you want to take this as an opportunity to recognize someone on your team, this could be a great chance to do that, and we haven't had anyone say no yet. So something to keep in mind. We definitely can kind of curate that kind of global public recognition in a way that suits the organization. We don't want it to be a popularity contest. And then finally, I think that the key takeaway is just don't skimp on the little thank you notes. It was funny, just yesterday, our chief revenue officer reminded the entire company of how powerful a simple thank you note can be. He had gotten one from our CEO a couple years ago, and he was like, 2 years later, I still think about that all the time. And so it's really such a valuable tool for managers and leaders and even peers at the peer level to really help make people feel valued, seen, and appreciated. We even implement data into the equation. You know, we're a data-driven advertising company, and so we look at the numbers of how many managers are taking advantage of one of our recognition product tools, and really want to leverage that to help encourage better behavior. But the key takeaway is that no act of recognition, no matter how small, is wasted. You never know who will be thinking about it two years from now. So don't hold back.
Also, I think just to build on that, you know, everyone's day is looking very differently now. You might not know what they've been balancing and juggling. So sometimes those small moments of more intentional recognition, whether it's a note or even a simple Slack message or something that might make them smile, can be so much more important now, just as we're facing new challenges every day, right? So Jess, thank you so much for walking through that. I love just starting from the notion of, you know, Jeff's vision around quality time, how it's so important to give people the opportunities to connect with themselves, to connect with those that they love, and just seeing how you've translated that across those new behaviors and activities that are worth celebrating is so powerful. So thank you again for this section. We're going to move into a next totally different avenue, which is really this notion of how do you translate these large events and incentives and gatherings now that we're no longer feeling as safe to get together? So Nancy, I'm going to transition it over to you. Would love to start by just hearing a little bit about, you know, what did recognition events look like before for JM Family, and ultimately, why is recognition such an important part of the auto industry? I'll pass it over to you.
Thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah?
We can hear you. You're good to go.
Okay. Yay. Okay. We're having a little bit of internet connectivity issues here in South Florida, I guess, today. So I'm sorry. I'm glad you can hear me now. At JM&A, we host 3 large incentive programs annually. One of our programs is our Cash Bash event, which is held annually at the Wynn in Las Vegas each October. At this event, we host approximately 1,200 of our dealer partners who participate in a game of chance for total winnings between $7 and $8 million, and another 1,200 received winnings that are absentees. Our dealer partners compete in a contest for the opportunity to participate. The contest period runs annually from May to August. So in April of 2020, with the uncertainty of the COVID environment and knowing that some of our dealer partners were closed or not operating at 100%, we made the difficult decision to cancel our 2020 Cash Bash program. And we needed to pivot quickly. So we began to prioritize what changes we needed to make. How do we build anticipation and excitement in this virtual environment? The new program needed to be flexible and customizable, allowing it to be meaningful and memorable for each individual winner. We understood that each winner may have a different comfort level when it came to travel, all while keeping our original incentive program goals in mind, increasing sales activity, recognizing our dealer partners, and building stronger relationships. How did we do this? We had approximately 350 JM&A field associates working with over 3,800 dealerships who all had different priorities of what it means in regards to incentives during this COVID environment and what their needs were. So it was very important for us to offer a contest that allowed us to provide our dealer partners with flexibility to design it in a way that best fit their dealership and their internal sales teams. To help with the availability to create customized contests, we launched a variety of different reward levels. The rewards itself shifted from a one-time over-the-top event to individual reward options, where each winner had the ability to choose an award that aligns best with their comfort zone. As some winners were comfortable with taking a family trip to Disney, while other winners might be more comfortable glamping in a campground close by, or beginning a personal journey to a healthier lifestyle from the comfort of their home with a Peloton bike package. Our field associates and dealers were impressed with how quickly we were able to come up with a new plan and adjust. With anything new, there's learnings. Since vast changes were being made within just a short period of 6 weeks, we had to make sure that we had buy-in from our key stakeholders. So to do this, we formed focus groups. Our focus groups included our field sales team, our field support, marketing, accounting, and management teams as well. We wanted to make sure that we had a solid process and that our dealer partners would see value in these new programs. Training of our field team was also critical, as the team who designed the program was not the team that was the face of the launch. We had 350 field associates who were tasked with launching an extremely customizable incentive program. So we hosted 4 trainings, broken up by division, which included details on why the programs was developed, the incentive inclusions, customization options, the process, as well as promotional material like landing pages and slide decks with samples of reward options.
I wanted to pause here just really quickly, Nancy, too. We talked at the beginning about how important it was to do these virtual trainings. I'm wondering if you want to share any more detail about how that looked differently than before and any of the feedback that you received from the new way that you kind of rolled out the trainings in this new format.
Yeah, so, before we launched one non-customizable program. So it was launched to all of our 3,800 dealers. It was one program. So we were able to launch programs like this very much driven by our marketing team. Because we were allowing for so much customization and what the reward levels might look like, and it might look different in a large metropolitan area versus a rural area, or different in Miami, versus Idaho. We just wanted to make sure that we were really cognizant of what the contest structure potentially would look like, as well as what the rewards that were given out, make sure that they really fit the need of our individual clients, our dealers. So with that rollout, instead of marketing just pushing out generic information, we wanted to really make sure that our field team, who was going to be the face of this rollout and launch, really understood what those options were. So we really took a very different approach of making sure that we were really educating the face of the launch, which is our field, who really has the one-on-one connections with our clients and our dealers, who would ultimately be opting in the contest for recognition.
Did you find, just given the change, that you needed to start that training earlier than before? Was there any other preparation related to like your timeline of rollout that changed with the new experiences that you launched?
We launched this whole program really within 6 weeks. So ideally, if we had a longer time period, we probably would have launched in a with more time in between. But we made sure that we gave our field team about 10 days or so to really wrap their head around it and come back to us with feedback and really understand any questions that they may had. Maybe test a couple questions with some of their dealers and clients on a one-on-one basis, and come back to the marketing team to really understand where there might be knowledge gaps and more information that we might need to provide to allow them to really to sell the program to our clients so that it would be successful.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, feel free to keep rolling through this slide.
Yeah. So socialization will also be a focus. It's always a focus in anything that we do. As we see winner stories come in, we plan to share those in public channels and encourage them for more participation. And then, you know, one of the key things here is that although we might not be face to face with our dealers who are receiving these words, our hopes are that with whatever they choose, it's something that's so meaningful to them that it'll always be remembered, and and attached to that memory will be that it's something that JM&A gifted to them. So we wanted to make sure that we are continuing to build those connections, even though it's in a virtual world. And I kind of wanted to close. We're still learning. We just launched this program this summer, so we're just finishing our first end of the contest month. So we're still waiting on results to come in. We hope to see those around the 15th of this month to see exactly how successful this program will be. So we're really excited to see that and excited to share this program with you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to just dig a little bit deeper into the concept of meaningful relationships. You mentioned at the beginning how important those partnerships with the dealers are for the auto industry, but especially for JM Family. It really helps you be differentiated from your competition to have those relationships. So would love to hear a little bit more about the follow-up plan. I know the program just launched, but you'll have access actually to a lot of feedback, to data around when these Blueboard experiences are getting scheduled, for example. Can you share a little bit more about how your team might be leveraging that content to re-engage with those winners?
Of course. So traditionally, we're on site with these dealers, right? We're at the large event. We're building those relationships one-on-one. In this virtual environment, we won't have that opportunity. So we're thankful that we will be able to continue to get the data from the Blueboard dashboard. And our field team can individually have those conversations with the winners and talk to them about, you know, how was your trip, you know, to the Tetons, or did you enjoy your family trip to Walt Disney World? Or I know that you weren't comfortable with traveling at this time and you built a playground in your backyard for your children, and really build those relationships and so that there is a one-on-one connection between our client as well as our field team, because that's really important to us to make sure that we are building a partnership successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And connection continues to be so needed right now, especially as we're a little bit more distanced from people than usual. So making sure you still have those stories to drive relationships, right? Like the, hey, did you end up building the playground in your backyard? What I love about that is it makes it a more authentic relationship. So instead of having meetings just to discuss business alone, it gives you the opportunity to be a little bit more human and real with your partners or stakeholders. So they're really excited to see how the contest progresses, Nancy, and to see all the amazing results that you'll be having. Great.
We're excited too.
Wonderful. We're going to take a quick pause. That was actually the last we had with Nancy, so thank you so much for going through that. We have about 15 minutes or so left in the content. We wanted to take a quick pause and just offer up the opportunity as a partner for anyone who is inspired by the idea of recognizing those living your company values, those going above and beyond to contribute to your culture. Or if you're similar to Nancy and thinking about, you know, how do I really replace this in-person event with something that can be done digitally or virtually or more safely than traveling as a group? And you might be curious to learn more about Blueboard. Mitchell's going to run a quick poll for us on screen. So if you are interested to learn more about Blueboard, you're welcome to answer the poll by saying yes. Our team will plan just to reach out to you and we can schedule a one-on-one conversation, learn more about your recognition goals, share a demo of our sample experience venue, and a lot of other exciting things. Ultimately, like I mentioned at the beginning, we're all about powering meaningful rewards, having authentic connections and celebrations, whether that's for milestones like anniversaries, bringing new people to the team through referral incentives, sales incentives and spiffs, or even translating your President's Club. Those are all amazing opportunities for us to partner together. So we'll let the poll run for just a few more seconds and we will jump into Q&A. So would love to just invite everyone to share questions. There have been a few coming through already that we can look at, but ultimately, yeah, would love to have the space for people to drop questions in. We have a few more minutes together. So I'll let everyone take a moment just to drop anything here for us. Great. Maybe a question we can discuss together as we're waiting for some questions to pop through. Nancy or Jess, would love to think about measurement. How might you be thinking about gathering feedback, maybe including recognition with more prominence in a engagement survey or things like that? How are you effectively going to measure the impact of these new programs and decide what you might want to continue focusing on as the year continues, or even thinking into 2021? But we'll start first with just how you might be gathering feedback. Nancy, can you share a little bit more detail about what your feedback process will be looking like, and how you might be taking time to make change or to continue moving forward with these different programs?
We actually, as a team this morning on our marketing team meeting, we had a discussion about how can we change our annual, or we actually do quarterly feedback surveys from our dealers. And we want to change them more towards like a dealer insight survey, where it's more of a voice of a partner, rather than just asking some generic question. So we really want to hear their feedback, understand their feedback, and make sure that as the surveys go out, we're really making sure that we're wording the questions in a way for them to be open-ended and feel like we're listening. A lot of times when you get feedback from your clients, they love you, they check, that you're doing a great job, or they, everything's status quo. But we really want to make sure that they're more open-ended, and we can use the data that's being provided. So that's a new initiative. Like I mentioned, we just talked about it this morning about how we're going to be revamping those, even renaming what they will look like, how often they'll be sent out. So that's an excited new initiative for us as well.
I love the idea of just the open-ended feedback, because this is so new. It gives more people the opportunity to share their own ideas, elaborate in more detail. So that's a great ad. Love that you're doing that. Jess, what about you? How are you kind of evaluating all the virtual gatherings, the different programs you're running when you're thinking about measurement at Trade Desk?
Yeah, so as a data-driven company, we love data, and we'll get our hands on whatever we can. When it comes to virtual events, really looking at that participant count to understand how many people are attending. You can pull some neat reports to also see who's attending, kind of which topics tend to get the best response. And then when it comes to recognition, our BI team had built this really remarkable tool for managers to leave personal messages for their employees. And so we look at that data, and we have even talked to senior leaders recently about, this is the participation rate we're at. This is something we know starts with managers, and how can we really help inspire our people leaders to take the time to do things like this. I maybe prematurely answered a question in the Q&A, and it moved to answered, but somebody had asked a really great question about how can you give well-deserved recognition without discouraging others who have not recently received recognition. And just a note on that, I think it's so important to really instill this with the people managers, so they know it really falls to them to recognize everyone on their team, regardless of how flashy or frequently they get recognition. You really want to create a culture in which everyone feels valued and heard, and the recognition doesn't always have to be one size fits all. Somebody might not like the employee spotlight, just a private thank you note, or taking some time in a one-on-one to really share what they're doing well can go such a long way. And so really putting that on the managers to help be culture champions of recognition is important, along with just the quantitative data that we collect to understand how much participation we're getting in certain channels.
Yeah, that's so important. Like you mentioned, again, to come back to manager training, most companies have recognition programs in place, but very rarely are employees reaping the benefits of them. And it often comes down to managers maybe not feeling comfortable, not knowing the guidelines, not having awareness around what the programs are. So it continues to reinforce the need to over-communicate, to overtrain, to have shared resources like some of the ones that Nancy posted on screen that really help everyone understand the mechanics of what's available to them. And then Jess, I love that you have, this kind of plays into another question we received just about from one of our anonymous attendees. They were asking about, how frequent should recognition be, and how do you think through frequency of, behaviors that might deserve rewards, like something like Blueboard, versus more of the cost effective or kind of the free, if you will, recognition that might be more verbal. Jess, I know that you have the values cards. Are there other things at Trade Desk that you're doing to hit more of those high frequency recognition opportunities or appreciation opportunities compared to the events like your anniversaries or Spot where you're using more tangible rewards like Blueboard?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially because the postcards were so well received, and even the little things. It's funny, we have kind of an unofficial mascot at the trade desk, which is a bouncing sheep emoji, and someone on the team had built or designed these value sheep emojis, and so we have a full-hearted emoji that's like a big heart sheep, and a vision emoji, one for each of our values. And recognition can be really small, and putting a little value sheep on somebody's post or something that they've shared that's really open can really go a long way. We know people pay attention to who emojis their stuff in Slack channels. And so I really think that you can kind of deliver recognition in a multitude of ways. It doesn't always have to be a big flashy Blueboard experience, because we do try to save those for really remarkable things like anniversaries. But just that qualitative message that you get from your manager or your teammate, that's just meaningful at the end of the day, saying, I value having you on the team so much because you are so good at really keeping a pulse on the company, or just really identifying those specific skill sets so they know it's not meaningless feedback. I think that's why we do it at the end of the day. It's not about gold stars, it's about the contributions and authentic recognition. So
Yeah, I have something to add there too.
Yeah.
For instance, a lot of our team, we have many planners across the company that have adjusted their workload during this time as we're not traveling. So our event planners are taking on different things like social media or reinventing our incentive programs or things like that. Our managers have been extremely, aware and recognizing everyone for their work, but they're doing it extremely intentionally. So for instance, they know that I have 2 daughters. So just randomly one day I got a package in the mail and I had 2 of every type of art project: 2 design your own water bottles, 2, coloring books that were age appropriate for their ages. And it was done in a very intentional way that was personalized to me. Much more meaningful than if they were just to send something, like a gift card to the grocery store. It was done in a way that, knowing that I'm home and I'm struggling with how do you balance work life and home life, that they gave me something to entertain my kids that was very thoughtful. So I think that, it wasn't extreme or over the top, but it was a surprise and thoughtful is important as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. So we are wrapping up today. Thanks again for everyone who joined. Again, we had close to 400 attendees live with us. I really appreciate you making the time. And as we close, would love to pass it over to Jess and Nancy. What's the one thing that you would love the audience to walk away with today when they're thinking about adapting their own recognition strategy? And Jess, we can start with you.
If I could give you one thing to walk away with, I would say just be really intentional about how you're recognizing people, and really go that extra 10%, especially given the climate that we find ourselves in. Really, no act of recognition is ever wasted, just like kindness. So don't be afraid, or don't hesitate to tell someone that you value them. It'll go further than you know.
And the one takeaway that I have for you guys is that recognition can be meaningful and memorable, whether it's in person or virtual. I think that was something big with, what the changes we had to make, and understanding that our dealer partners and our clients are valuing that we're still recognizing them, even though we might not be able to physically be there and shake their hand and say congratulations. So everything that we can do in person, there is this strategy to do that virtually as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of our amazing speakers, to Nancy, to Jess. And as you leave today, would love to challenge you just to think about one thing that you can do to change your recognition strategy in a really powerful way. We'd love to have any ideas or feedback you have shared with us. For example, you can email our team at community@blueboard.com, or you can always drop us a note on our website. And for those interested to connect with Blueboard, welcome you to check us out at blueboard.com, or you can head over to the virtual expo area and connect with our booth and also grab some more resources there. So thanks again, Nancy. Thanks again, Jess and Mitchell behind the scenes running the show for us. Enjoy the rest of Empower, and we will hopefully see you online again very soon. Have a great day, everyone.